This is it. We are live. My name's James Ski. I'm the founder of Sales Confidence, and I've got the wonderful Elaine Tyler from Venatrix. How are you doing, Elaine?
I'm fantastic, thank you. How are you doing, James?
I'm doing very well. We've done a few of these this year, haven't we?
We have, yes. I think, are we 6 deep, perhaps, in its history since it's been online?
Yeah, I think so, in terms of SDR events. And I'm excited for everyone to find out that actually on the 11th of November, so that's the 11th of November, we're going to be bringing together all of the London SDRs and their team leaders and managers for the first in-person event for SDRs in, I think, about 2 years. So that's pretty special, isn't it?
I literally can't wait, particularly as like so much has been done online recently. I think for people in the SDR community, some of their networks are virtual only. So the fact that we're going to be able to bring together people who maybe people have seen speaking at these events that we've been running to actually meet face to face is going to be super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give everybody a bit of introduction to the format of this event, the purpose of Sales Confidence is to help you at each stage of your career with your mindset, well-being, and performance. And Venatrix is one of our partners that supports us to bring this community together. It's never been more important, particularly as an SDR, to have a community you can network with, because we know so many of you are sitting at home, still in your bedrooms, working away at your computer right next to your bed. And that can be hard, especially when you've had a difficult day of rejection. So these communities are really important for you to get a bit of headspace, but also for you to network with your peers. You never know what's going to happen in the future. You never know what's happening next in your career. So it's important to build this network and invest early. The basic format of this event is that each of our speakers, which are a range of SDRs, also AEs that have recently made that transition from SDR to AE, and also a sales development leader to give you what their view is of what you should be looking to deliver as an SDR to be successful. Each of the speakers gets 7 minutes. So 7 minutes is enough to inspire you with actionable insights, but short enough that they have to be succinct and they have to be articulate and to the point. And that's what we really try and drive with Sales Confidence, really articulate speakers that can deliver in a concise way. Do you think that's been an important part of what we're famous for, Elaine, having 7-minute talks rather than 10-minute or 20-minute talks?
For definite. And I think that's what's super useful is that people could go and revisit the talks, because actually there's a whole library of content that everybody can access in terms of understanding different parts of the job that they might want to do to be successful, and it all exists there online.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And all of this will be recorded. You'll get sent the recordings and you can watch the recordings on YouTube. And you'll also get access to our free membership area where you can search videos and find out all the previous content that's been posted on Sales Confidence. So shortly, we're going to bring up our first speaker, Peter Lambert, who's actually a former Olympian. So I think that's a first for Sales Confidence, that we've got a former Olympian on the line. So excited to do that. But first, I just want to mention a couple of things that we've got coming up. If you haven't noticed, we've been promoting across the Sales Confidence channels and my channels on LinkedIn this year's top 50 SDRs in the UK. Now, this is the second year we're doing this, and it's a great way to build the profile of yourself as an individual. And we're always talking about your personal brands, but also the individual of your organization. And the other thing to highlight is that this is the first year we're actually going to be listing the top 50 SDR leaders or SDR managers. And I think that's important because we've got to recognize the SDR organization as a whole. Is it fair to say, Elaine, that the SDR organization in the UK has blown up over the last few years? And I ask you that because you've been part of delivering people into those teams, and you must be at the forefront of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got absolutely no idea how we're going to whittle it down to a top 50 with how many SDR positions there are that we're certainly recruiting for at the moment. I feel like there must be a top 500. But obviously the awards is an excellent opportunity for individuals within a company to get to nominate their peers, because normally plaudits and kudos tend to come from the top, whereas obviously the awards open it up to everybody, and perhaps even somebody not in your company, maybe somebody that you've worked with in the past, or somebody who's inspired you by speaking at one of these events. So it's a great opportunity to recognize excellent performance.
Yeah, totally agree. And, you know, you never know. So I always say to people, like, if you don't have someone you want to vote for yourself, because it's all about getting those nominations and then us screening the nominations based on volume, but also where you fit in the company. So I'm just going to put that nominations link in the chat so you can save it for later while we're going through the event. So I just want to highlight two things, and then we're going to kick off the first talk. First is we wouldn't be able to do this without our sponsors. One of our main sponsors, Venatrix, has been supporting us for the last 3 years, but we've also got to shout out our diamond partner, Salesloft, Drift and Gong, Aircall, Varicent, MindTickle, Demodesk, SalesWorks, Refract, Air, Cognizant, Sales Psyche, Get Accept. If you use any of those technologies that I've mentioned, just drop it in the chat right now so I can see that you're listening and it's loud and clear. Let me know which technology you're using. The other thing I want to share with you is the idea of the fact that our final SDR event is going to be in person, and it's on the 11th of November. So you should be able to see my screen right now. I'm highlighting the fact that on the 11th of November, we're going to be bringing we've actually got capacity for 300 SDRs and SDR managers. This is going to be a crazy evening. For your ticket price, you get food and alcohol included until it runs out at about 9 o'clock. But it's a full in-person event where we recognize this year's top 50 speakers. We also have a number of leading speakers in Sean, Hayes, Maddie, and Rob. So there will be some 7-minute talks, but the bulk of the energy is going to be focused on the top 50 SDRs and the top 50 SDR Manager Award. So what I would say is send this around your team and make sure you get signed up. It's on a Thursday, so you can have a bit of a heavy head on a Friday. And Elaine, you've been to a few of these events in the year. What makes a great sales confidence event?
I think that everybody is super happy to be there, bringing the energy and the vibe. And I know that people are looking forward to this one because I've already had loads of messages in my inbox about, like, how do we get a ticket? What's the dress code? What's it going to be like? So I think it's going to be a fantastic event, probably the best one of the year. Yeah, without a doubt. And it's going to be held at five-star hotel, the De Vere Hotel, for the first time, which is a mega hotel for these type of special events in London. So I'll drop the link in the chat, and off we go. Okay, cool. So let's kick off with our first speaker. Elaine, if you want to pop off, and we'll invite you back soon. And Peter, I'm going to invite you onto the stage and give an introduction before you get started. So just to mention, Peter joined Zscaler in August of 2020, originally as an account development representative. So he's been a BDR, and he's moved into an AE earlier this year. And this is someone that's got a lot of life experience before he entered into an ADR role. And I think that makes him really interesting, considering the fact that he was an elite rower, he's been an Olympian, and he's a 2-time World Championship medalist for Great Britain. So this is one of those talks where you're going to hear about what you need to do to move from an SDR to an AE, because Peter is someone that's successfully done it. So Peter, I'm going to hand the mic over to you. You've got 7 minutes.
Cheers. Thank you very much, James. Everyone hear me okay? James, thumbs up.
Yeah, you can hear you loud and clear.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. So I rode for Team GB for 8 years. I always knew I wanted to go into sales after retiring with the delay of the Tokyo Olympics. Sales was always for me. I had targets set from when I was 14 years old. I needed to achieve those targets. If I didn't achieve those targets, someone else would take my seat. Always knew I wanted to get into sales. Started at Zscaler in August 2020. Asked for advice. Do I want to go into a closing role, a BDR role? Through numerous chats with lots of salespeople while I was transitioning out of my elite sport role, they suggested definitely go into a BDR role because you're going to learn more. You're going to learn how to PG. And a lot of the best closers in large enterprise and majors within the best software sales companies in the world were BDRs because they learned how to PG. And it's the basics that get you your pipeline for second and third quarter. Went into that, looked after majors and large enterprise. In 9 months, I closed 35% of all EMEA opportunities throughout the entire company in some way, shape, or form I touched. That was worth 25 million. And I want to talk to you guys about today about I then was promoted into a closing role. And I'm going to talk about what I did, about how I went about it, because this was literally the first job I ever had outside of my rowing career. So I always thought when I was looking for a promotion, I thought once you were in the company, a promotion looked like it was like in the movies where you speak to your boss on a golf course, you buy him a beer, you shake his hand, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to get the job. Yeah, I'm going to get the job. And I quickly found out that that wasn't the case. And I needed to prove myself about if I want to go into a closing role, I need to show certain things. So I literally ran my promotion and my interview process like a sales cycle. I approached the manager and I asked them for 30 minutes of their time. Don't ever just say, oh yeah, manager and me having 30 minutes. Write an agenda. If it's a Zoom call, you have an agenda so that they have a reason to be there. I set up the 30-minute call and I said, I would like to get started in your closing in your territory. I need to know, what do I need to prove from myself in order to get that. I then started identifying pain. I did, within my company, we follow the sales process of MEDIC. So I started identifying pain within his region and what he had to do as a manager. And I started identifying things like, okay, the training and ramp up for a new hire is roughly 6 months. That means that you're not going to be closing first this. He's learning the industry. They need to learn all of that. Whereas if I come in, I'm able to already know exactly what we do as a company, what our USP is, all of that stuff. I then also started approaching the manager that not only did I have the pain that he was associated with, I needed metrics. So therefore I started showing all of my metrics that I did as a BDR, how many companies I was closing, everything that I touched, what it was closing. If I was sending out emails, how many of those would come back as replies. I showed them all of that. I also got a shared sheet, which I had with my manager. Well, sorry, my manager now, but the guy that I wanted to be promoted into his role. And I said, this is my progression plan. After having our first half-hour discussion, you just said that these are my weaknesses, these are my strengths. These are what I'm going to be starting to work on in my weaknesses. Each week I'm updating it and I'm notifying you of an email summary. This is what I did in order to mitigate the risk. I also just asked them black and white, and I said, if you had to choose between me and another BDR to promote in the next month, what are they doing right? What am I doing right? What are they ahead of me in that I need to make sure that I need to do? And asking those type of questions shows you that you have the ability to think very much. A BDR's role is almost sales cycle 0 to 1, discovery, identifying a bit of pain. But where you have risk as a BDR going into a closing role is you don't know how to handle the discussion around economic buyer. You don't know how to understand how to handle the discussion around the decision process or decision criteria. And all of this I learned while being a BDR, and I showed my manager, this is what I'm doing to prove to you that I can mitigate all of this risk. That just helped me loads, because then my manager started saying, not only can this guy PG, not only can he reach out to this, he can create all of these good emails. He is showing me that he has taken the initiative that I understand from stage 3 to 7 and closing. I need to prove to him that I can do that. And that was where I identified pain. I was showing him that he was severely under-resourced. He had severely under technical SEs aligned to him. So I was saying, I am more technically advanced than some other BDRs because I've studied the product, I've studied our solution. that I could go on to discovery calls or new business meetings without a technical counterpart, because I can have that conversation at a very high level. And something like that is really important as a closer if you can do that, and if I could prove that. So I had to prove it by obviously having a technical conversation with them. And I just thought the big highlights that I found from what I would always bring across is that if you're going to ask for your manager's time, if you're looking for promotion, these guys are extremely busy. Make it worthwhile to them. Send them an agenda. It is not like what you see in the movies where you just do a handshake and you ask for it. SaaS software sales is massive at the moment. Everyone wants to be in a closing role. You deserve to go into a closing role if you're doing well as a BDR, but you need to prove how you do that. And it's not just by, oh, look at my numbers, because there's going to be 1,000 people knocking on the door outside of the company that are wanting to do that. You need to prove in other ways how you can do that by identifying pain within that company and within that territory. What is the manager spending all of his time? If he's spending 30% of his time on hiring and speaking to people outside of the company, you say, well, you don't need to speak to people outside. I'm here. And that I think is just how I would say was the best thing that I learned. And I was promoted within 8 months. So it was really cool. I was very, very lucky. And I think, James, I'm bang on 7 minutes if my time's correct. But yeah, guys, good luck out there, and I hope it goes well.
Thank you very much, Peter. Really appreciate that. It's good for SDRs and BDRs out there to hear about the steps that you've taken to get promoted, and the effort that you have to put in beyond your job. So thank you very much for sharing. I'm going to invite Elaine up to introduce our next speaker.
Hi. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So next up, we have Lucy Obertelli. So Lucy's title of her speech is Come Prospect With Me, The Power of Personalization and Building a Brand. So Lucy joined Refract in March of this year, having previously held roles at Nevo, Aircall and Prime. She earned her BA in Politics and International Relations at the University of Sheffield after studying abroad for a year in the USA as well. You may recognize her from her videos on LinkedIn and TikTok, which is all about working in the sales industry. So if you haven't seen her as yet, make sure you give her a follow. Take it away, Lucy.
Cheers. Thanks for that, Elaine. And thank you so much for everyone being here today. I think we're all in agreement that it's been a great event so far. So really looking forward to the rest of the afternoon. So as Elaine said, my name is Lucy Obertelli and I'm an SDR at Refract, an Allego company. Historically, Refract has helped sales leaders to gain valuable insight into their sales team's conversations on the front line. Now, as part of Allego, we're also providing content, learning, conversational intelligence and coaching, which is quite a mouthful, all under one roof to help sales reps succeed. I've been in the SaaS world for almost 2 years now, and it's fair to say that I've been through the motions, both the highs and the lows. So what I prepared today is what I like to think of as my recipe for success in personalizing your outreach as an SDR and building a brand for yourself. But as with every recipe, this has come with its trials and tribulations. So I really hope this can save you some time and perhaps turn some of your rotten apple prospecting habits into some top banana outreach. So I'll start off with the power of personalization. I realized quickly when I was in the SDR role that I was always going to be a quality over quantity kind of gal in my approach and changing up how I prospect on a regular basis. However, I'm hoping that some of these examples can provide a snippet into how I try and personalize each method of outreach, but also the power that I believe it has on our prospects. So I really do hope that you're ready for the rest of the afternoon. And I'm going to start off with everybody's favorite, the humble cold call. So you learn quickly in sales that those first few seconds of a call are extremely valuable. Whilst I used to try and cram my research into those first few seconds, I now try to consider that experience on the receiving end. So the prospect is most likely very cold. They may have had a connection request from me on LinkedIn, but that's about it. So the first few seconds of a call, I always find it's key to appreciate that you're an interruption, a little bit like this. Hi X, it's Lucy calling from Refract. We actually haven't spoken before, although we did connect on LinkedIn this morning. Can I perhaps steal 35 seconds to tell you why I've chosen to give you a call today? Now, whilst my managers, Mark, Stu and Rich, will now once again be debating who came up with 35 seconds, 35 seconds works as it's not too long, not too short, and appears like a genuine ask, immediately putting your prospect at ease. From then on, personalization can be really simple. On a daily basis, I speak to a combination of sales managers, SDR managers, CROs a lot. So on a cold call, I try and keep it quite simple and instead really focus on the language, considering the challenges that they face daily in their role and using language which is going to resonate in their world. Remember, less about you and more about them. Now let's talk about emails. Prospects' inboxes are busy places, not only with other sales messages, but also with company internal emails, their HelloFresh orders, and whatever else might be in there. So a great place to start is the subject line. Keep it short, but whatever, it has to feel like this email could only possibly in this person's inbox. Researching your prospect is key. My time at school is definitely coming back to haunt me now, as I like to think of writing an email as a little bit like sitting an open book exam. I scan through a LinkedIn profile and I pick out 3 things which stand out. Perhaps it's posts they made about themselves or they've engaged with. Perhaps I take a stroll through their interests or anything like that, but I also give their name a quick Google search, because this can often bring up some gold. Then after my research, I think about the email, considering how I can bridge their interest and make it relevant to a conversation that I'd like to have with them. But these are my 3 golden tips. Personalization doesn't just have to be about them. It can be about their role, their team, or their company too. Don't worry, in my time, I've seen some pretty blank LinkedIn profiles, and this has always really helped. Another thing to remember is keep it short. Once you've written an email, go back and see if you can take out any lines and make it sound something more like a conversation with a friend or someone at the pub. And finally, the power of the PS. When Ronaldo announced his return to Old Trafford, the PS on his Instagram post had us all fighting back tears. And whilst the PS on your email may not trigger that reaction from a prospect, what I believe it does is really humanize that interaction. Perhaps you've noticed, for example, that they're a self-professed wine lover. In the PS, why not share your own favourite bottle of wine for them to try? If anybody's wondering, mine's a nice bottle of Chateauneuf de Pape. Now, whilst we're on the subject of written messages, I couldn't not mention the power of prospecting poetry. Whilst I'm not claiming to be Robert Frost, I do feel like my English literature degree is finally being put to some good use. In August alone, poetry helped me to book 18 meetings, which I hope justifies my claim that prospecting poetry really does work. So here's a quick example of what I tend to share with prospects. There once was a sales leader called Hugh, who was passionate about salespeople and developing them too, overseeing the sales team and leading the way, but he knew there were still key moments in calls being missed each day. It was hard for the team to choose which calls to review, but did you know Refract can do the hard work for you? So resurfacing the calls where opportunities are missed, or even the conversations which are absolute bliss. No more letting revenue slip through the net. Refract can power your sales team to be a triple threat, ramping up new starters quicker, as well as saving time, making sure you're winning more conversations and making more dime. So why does poetry work? Believe it or not, it really is scalable. As you've just heard from that, the personalization is only really needed for the first couple of lines. As well as that, it's the ultimate form of flattery and relatively hard to say no to. Finally, it's different and humorous. Poetry can help you to stand out as well as revealing some of your personality. As I've only got 7 minutes, and I'm definitely going over, and I'm also a fan of a shameless plug, do take a look through my recent LinkedIn posts, as you'll see some of my posts focus around a suggested prospecting poetry structure for you to have a go at yourself. Now, whilst I feel serious imposter syndrome introducing this topic, let's discuss how you can build a brand for yourself on LinkedIn. I'm totally aware that this imposter syndrome stems from the fact that around 12 months ago, I never thought anybody would be taking advice from me on a subject such as this. However, I'd be lying if I said that building a brand, or however you like to think of it, hasn't been my intention for some time. In doing so, it's brought me both results and great connections with other people in the industry, which have proved invaluable. So here are my top tips. Number 1 is to accept that it's a slow burn. You know how Miley Cyrus said, life's a climb, but the view is great? I like to think she was talking about the SDR role when she made such a prophecy. However, the notion stands. Having a brand, or even having those quick wins on LinkedIn, doesn't come easy. And I remember that being said to me within my first few days in sales. But here's the thing, we've all got to start somewhere. So even when it feels tough, post regularly, post advised about your own experiences, or perhaps take inspiration from other people's posts. You can post relatively industry relevant content, or my personal favorite, post videos and clips relevant to your role. Perhaps it's a coping mechanism at this point, but sometimes posting a come down with me clip to get over a colleague nicking your prospect is just what the doctor ordered. Which leads me nicely on to point number 2, which is to be authentically you. I asked a few of my friends how they would describe me, and at least 2 of them said they would use the word funny, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But joking aside, that's why a lot of my posts I try to make humorous. But whilst it's good to get a laugh on LinkedIn, it's also great for building connections. A lot of my conversations with prospects have started from saying things like, from one US office enthusiast to another. And it really is a great way to break the ice. Even better, more recently, prospects have started to come to me, which perhaps is one of the biggest benefits of regularly posting on LinkedIn. But my final point is to engage. Make connections with relevant people in your industry and engage with their content too. Also, to be sure to connect with people looking in your profile, as LinkedIn has that feature for a reason. And when you are connected, drop them messages and engage. Ask for tips, advice, ask them who you should be following and connecting with too. But more than anything, and as we should be doing in all our sales conversations, try to build connections and relationships. You begin to present yourself as 10 times warmer to prospects once you've already shared a conversation. So if you've made it through the final few seconds, then you definitely deserve a knighthood for listening to 7 minutes of my northern drawl. But here's what I'm hoping are your key takeaways. Number 1 is that personalization is key in whichever mode of outreach, and there are lots of ways in which you can do it. Number 2 is to be authentically you. Whether that's in building your brand or personalizing your outreach, remember that nobody does it better. And finally, set out to have conversations and make genuine connections with your prospects and not just to sell. Remember that every little helps. Thank you so much for listening. Do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I really look forward to catching some of you in the prospecting, in the networking bit later.
Yeah, you've got prospecting in your mind. It's not going to stop, is it?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, wonderful talk, Lucy. I love the points about the poetry, and thanks for sharing examples. It's great to hear some examples and you sharing some of your secrets there. So wonderful talk, and we'll see you back on the panel later.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. So next up, we've got Bryan Mulry, who's an enterprise SDR at Salesloft, and he's going to be talking about going from a job to the job. Bryan's got a fantastic story of someone who realized that he wasn't in the role that he wanted to be in, and he wanted to figure out what he should be doing next. And, you know, sometimes we're not happy and we're not satisfied with the role we're in. So we've got to identify what we should be changing to either improve our current situation or set ourselves free on a new pathway. So Bryan joined Salesloft as an enterprise SDR in August of this year, having held roles at Google Cloud and Media HQ. He's a mentor to many SDRs in the industry, and he's recently just moved from Ireland to London, so he is local to many of us now. He's launched his own podcast, Life with a Y, since he last took to the sales confidence stage, and he's already building up a good roster of guests. So Bryan, over to you.
Looks like James read my LinkedIn profile. Great to meet you all. The way I designed this talk today was it's a talk that I wish someone had given me about a year ago. About a year ago, I realized where I was and what track I was on, and it was a good track. Without being conceited, I was on a track to earn around about £200,000 per year in 3 years' time. That's an obscene amount of money for a 26-year-old. And I decided I didn't want it. I realized that I was in, whilst a very good job, it was still a job, and it wasn't the job. And today, the next 7 minutes, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that particular journey. I don't love talking about myself, but today, unfortunately, is going to be very me-centric. It is the only way to sort of tell these stories. I do hope you see yourself in this, though. So that's my sort of ask of you today. I will give a lot, though. Today, we're going to talk about where I was and how I realized where I was, what I did about it, and I'm going to give you 2 pieces of actionable advice at the very end of this. Before we go any further, can we just agree that SDRing is a grind? SDRing is one of the hardest jobs within the entirety of the SaaS space. And most of us see it as a path to account exec. I won't say most, but a lot of people see it as a temporary necessity. And the best sort of way that I can figure this out is I was on a discovery call in Google with one of the best account execs I've ever met. His name was Elliot. And it was one of my first discovery calls. we were selling to CTOs. So we took on a call with a high-level CTO, and Elliot got to work. He knew everything about the industry. He knew everything about our solution. He knew a lot about the CTO solution. And it was a very good sales experience. Now me, being a young 22-year-old SDR, looked at that and went, okay, I know exactly what I need to do. I know what I need to learn. I need to know what parts of the industry I need to know about. I know what parts of our solutions I need to learn about. It'll take a while, but I knew where the information was and I knew how to get it. And I knew how to be able to talk to CTOs about deep technical problems. The only problem with that path is I would have had to talk to CTOs about deep technical problems. And the thing is, like, I was happy. I was happy in my job. I was having interesting conversations. I liked it. And that became my ceiling. That became what I thought was happiness. That I thought the SDR job was, yeah, it's just a grind. I wasn't looking for interesting conversations. I was looking for meetings. And because of that, I had commission breath. Everything had an outcome. I was attached to the outcome. I was sending hundreds of emails every day. I was personalized. I wasn't personalized because I didn't know enough about the industry or the space to be able to be personalized and be relevant. And a lot of my thinking was, I'll be happy when I'm an AE. I'll be happy later. I'll be happy when I get to the next stage. If that sounds familiar to you, then this talk is probably for you. If you're very happy where you are, you can dip for the next 5 minutes. That is when this thing changed. And there's a very specific moment when it changed. I was very lucky when I was in Google Cloud. I was in a very specific sector. It was very hot, and I managed to hit my Q3 target in 4 days. Anyone who saw my last talk will know about that. That meant I had 11 and a half weeks to fill. So when a particular project needed a guinea pig, Bryan's hand went up. I was lucky enough to implement Salesloft within Google Cloud. Now, it's not a pitch for Salesloft, but talking about Salesloft and talking about the problems sellers were having became the best part of my day. I was talking to other sales managers, other sellers, RevOps, marketing. I was talking to everyone within that function. And I remember telling my old boss at the time, I was like, God, I wish I could just talk about selling all day, every day. And then we went back to figuring out how I could have more conversations about computer, cloud, and cloud sales. To me, the definition of sales is problem solving, but my favorite definition of sales is the transfer of enthusiasm from one person to another. If you're not enthusiastic, or if you don't care about the problem that you're solving, you can't be enthusiastic about the solution. And therefore, you're not really selling. You're just doing the selling job. That's a conclusion that I came to through this. And I find that a lot of first-time SDRs, in particular, we get a job. We see this industry and we see this as an entry point, and we go, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Sell tech solutions, yeah, sure, I'll figure it out. And we get a lot of good skills for it. But then we delay happiness. We delay what's going to come next. And that's where I found myself. And I decided to do something about it. In this next section, then, if I'm not happy with who I'm talking to, well, who do I want to talk to? And I made a list of all my favorite people to talk to. It was very one part of the business centric. It was salespeople, other SDRs, sales ops, marketing, etc. There was HR in there too. There was even legal people. But I got a sense of who do I love to have conversations with all day, every day. Then I went, what problem? Sorry, let me go back. Once you figure out who you want to talk to every day, that becomes the ICP. That becomes the ideal customer profile for the company you want to work for. So for me, it was salespeople. I went, okay, I want to talk to salespeople. Then you got to figure out a problem that you want to fix. So what problem do sellers have that I want to fix? And I did a lot of thinking, and that tells you what industry you want to be in. If I found out that I really wanted to make slide decks for sellers all day, every day, then I'd be in a different section of the industry. I'm now in sales engagement. And that told me what industry I wanted to be in. And once you have an ICP and an industry, then you got to find a company. And the best way to do that is to pick what part of the business cycle you want to be in. Do you want to be in a large enterprise, so the likes of Salesforce, where everything is planned out for you? Do you want to be in an absolute chaos of a startup? Do you want an established startup? Do you want a medium enterprise? And that will then tell you what kind of company you want to work for. Once you know what kind of company you want to work for, the hardest part is getting the job. Now, I was very lucky. I made a list. And on my list, Salesloft was number 1. Salesloft, a couple of weeks ago, made the biggest mistake the company's ever made. They hired me. Don't tell them. But that they'll figure that out later. But getting that job is the hardest part. You've done an awful lot of work. If you've done what I said, you've done an awful lot of work to get to this stage. Don't let it go down the drain because a bot says you don't have enough keywords in your CV. Sell yourself. You're sellers, after all. Somebody has trained you how to do it. So I'll tell you how I got my job at Salesloft. I reached out to every single SDR on the EMEA team. I asked them for 15 minutes. Every single one of them got back to me and said yes. Quick side note, if you reach out to the SDRs and nobody responds, you don't want to work for that company, because if they won't help you now, they're not going to help you in your job. But that's a whole tangent. I reached out to every single SDR that I could and got a load of information. Not just get a load of information, but I had poignant questions I wanted to ask. I talked to some business leaders in the space to figure out what Salesloft would look like further on, not Salesloft specific. And that meant that Rob, my now boss, knew who I was before the application. I would also suggest, but whilst talking to all of these SDRs, get one of them to mentor you through the process. So I had one mentor me through the application process. And that means that I knew what was coming up with all of the interviews, and I was able to prepare a little bit better. I didn't go to him with an ask. He got a referral bonus. So it's an opportunity. So it's easier for you to reach out as well. You're not going with an ask, you're going with an opportunity. So you reach out to all these people. You build up a wealth of knowledge. Everybody in the company is talking about you. Hyperbolic. And then you get the job. Guess what? It's still SDRing. Like, it's still hard. Like, SDRing is still a grind. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm very happy where I am. I hate making cold calls. People don't watch my videos. Or when I say people don't watch my videos, you could spend 20 minutes making a video and then realize it hasn't been watched. I bombed on discovery calls. SDRing is still really hard. But now, when I call somebody and they say, we don't have that problem, that's not a pain that we have, I don't immediately go to the objection handling notes that sales enablement tried to give me. You lead with curiosity and you go, wait a minute. Either you don't have sales engagement or you don't know that this is a pain, because I didn't have sales engagement and I didn't know that was a pain. And now I'm a seller. I'm not just repeating what people are doing. I now have the job, and I'm very lucky with how I have the job. In the last little while, I explained how we got there. But I did promise some relatable or actionable advice. 2 things I would suggest you do. First one is to reach out to every single person that is presenting today, and reach out to us and just connect with us on LinkedIn and send a note. And that note could say something, hey, really liked your talk. Hey, Bryan, you spoke too quickly and I couldn't understand what you were saying. Hey, Bryan, etc. Right? We'll probably respond and forget about it. And then let's say you want to work at Refract. You reach out to Lucy and you want to work at Refract. And in 2 weeks, you come back to Lucy and you go, hey, I want to work at Refract. What's the job like there? She scrolls up and she sees that you've had a conversation before. It's now a lot easier to get that mentor to talk to those people and to do the work so that the manager knows who you are long before you apply. And then the second thing I would suggest doing is make that list. Make the list. Who do I want to talk to? What industry? What problem do I want to solve? What company do I want to work for? It might be that the current company that you're in is number 1. It might not be. And if it isn't, find someone in that company to reach out to, someone to mentor you through. You're a seller. Sell yourself. And make sure that you're doing it in a way that makes you happiest. That is it on my end.
Thank you very much for that, Bryan. Okay, so moving on, we're now going to be hearing from William Kettle. Now, I can personally vouch that he is a very persistent SDR, as I've seen him regularly in my inbox. So Will joined Aircall as an SDR in May this year, but has already made a big impression as a natural salesperson. He's transitioned to sales after spending 2 years as a coding teacher, having earned his BA in creative coding from Goldsmiths University. Will is also an avid football fan, which he draws inspiration from in his sales approach.
We're just wait. I'm not Will. We're just we're just waiting for you, Will, to step on the share audio. Are you there, Will? Let us know. If not, we will jump to Steve. But we're just going to give Will one more moment. That was the main music to your ears, listening to Bryan about his approach on how he thinks about targeting companies. I think there was some good advice for any candidate on the market. Would you agree, Elaine?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is so important to sell something that you feel really passionate about, because, you know, naturally that is going to enthuse your prospects, because, you know, if you're picking up the phone, interrupting somebody's day, you know, obviously it's really important to be able to make sure you're doing that with like a smile on your face and ready to kind of face those objections, because you feel like there's a real meaning behind the conversations that you're having.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Okay, we seem to have lost Will, unfortunately. So we're going to jump to Steve. Steve, are you ready, Steve? Yeah, you're ready, good, prepared. All right, Elaine, if William comes back, we'll jump on. Sorry about that, everybody. It does sometimes happen with the technology. If William comes back, we'll get him to finalize. But Steve is on the line, and I'm going to introduce you, Steve. So Steve Williams is an SDR manager at Demodesk. I actually personally am super excited about this one. I met Steve about 10 years ago when he was just starting out his SDR career, when I was in my first SaaS company, Huddle, and I've seen him come a long way. He's going to be talking about your sales conversations. Are they doodles or masterpieces, and how SDRs can get bogged down in the details while missing the bigger picture. And it's important for those leaders on the call to support your SDR team to work towards these masterpieces. So Steve joined Demodesk this year as a commercial account manager role before being promoted into the director of business development. And he's held roles at various SaaS companies, including Huddle, Glassdoor, and Envision. Steve, over to you.
Thank you so much, James. And it's exciting to be here. So thanks for having me on the call today. So really, a lot of the talks today have been fantastic, and really talking about kind of all the things you need to be able to get to where you want to be in your career. I'm really going to talk about those moments when you're talking with a customer and really trying to understand from their perspective how you can be their best partner in a deal. And I kind of thought about this, and my mother's an artist. And I thought, hey, this actually works quite well with what we do as salespeople every day. And especially within my team and the SDR team here at Demodesk, we're really working to make sure that we're improving and making sure that the customers feel like they're part of what we're building together in their projects. So to start with, I'd like you to close your eyes. I want you to draw a house. Add some aesthetics for me on the front. What you think it should look like. Some windows, doors, a garden. What's in the garden? You can add something to the roof if you'd like. So now just take a snapshot quickly of what that looks like. And now open your eyes. Likelihood is you probably drew it and it had a door, a chimney on top, maybe 4 windows. Now, if I was your customer, I may have wanted you to draw something completely different. It could have had 2 doors. I wanted a mansion with 15 houses drawn. I wanted it to be yellow with huge shutters on each window. As people, we genuinely create quick doodles around what we think people are trying to talk about when they're explaining things to us. And we usually jump to these conclusions without understanding exactly what they want, because we've drawn this house multiple times before. So if a prospect now asked you to draw a house, which one of the following would you prefer? A doodle that can be shown off in a small gathering or just, put on the fridge, or an artistic masterpiece that captures the inner beauty of what you were trying to capture and is worthy of being displayed at a world-class museum? At the end of the day, they still both portray a house, but they have different lasting effects, which can easily translate to sales deals and customer interactions. So let me explain what I mean. Have you ever been on a call and the customer has laid out, or the prospect has laid out a challenge for you that relates to your product offering? You're so excited to tell them about it, you immediately dive in and you tell them all the amazing features that you have that are going to solve this problem. Essentially, you're drawing them a quick doodle about how you're going to solve this for them with your product. It's great. It's scrappy. It doesn't take much time. And if you have a great product-led platform, you can usually close the deal. But overall, that's really not much worth value to you. You don't talk much about it after the deals happen. You haven't really learned much. And you've passed it over to a rep if you're an SDR handing over meetings as well. Ultimately, that meeting doesn't happen. And that's because they didn't trust you to draw the painting and their masterpiece with them. So they go elsewhere to a competitor. Compare this with rich insights into your prospect's company. You spend loads of time learning about the challenges and pains that that prospect has. You spend time not trying to sell the product, but work with them on the final product and what it should look like. You want them to be excited to work with you and build up value about the product that you can build, an end project that you can build with them, highlighting these values and challenges. So the idea that is that you're helping them and challenging them in ways that they didn't even think of. You want to build trust to be their artist of this masterpiece. So you need to make sure that you understand exactly what they want to achieve, because that's how they're going to put trust in you. So what's the problem by having a doodle against a masterpiece? Well, the masterpieces are worth more to you and to everybody else over time. If you think about the last 5 deals you converted, did you spend time listening to the customer's challenges? Did you work to solve the problem with them? Did you try and diagnose where the real issues lied? Or did you just take down the notes because that's what you've been asked to do in the SDR role? Don't worry, we're all guilty of it. We've all done it. So I thought it'd be helpful, just, like Ski says, I've been doing this for 10 years. So these are a few tips that I've picked up over time that relate to not only artistry and building masterpieces out of deals, but actually the experiences that help your customers become great customers with you. So Bryan's already said it. The number one thing is just having genuine curiosity for your prospect. As an SDR, there's usually a set goal at the end of the call. Get the meeting booked in. Understand the tools that they're using. Who's going to be on the project? How much budget have they got? But when you start to be curious about the problem that you're trying to solve for the prospect and really listen to understand rather than respond, you will find that you will work with them to mutually solve the problem together. Starting to understand what the customer's challenges are, but following up with genuine intrigue and that mindset to deeply understand and care about solving this problem with them is imperative to you being different to the next SDR that they speak to. Questions that you could push back with are when somebody says, oh, well, we don't have a budget yet. It's like, that's really interesting. There isn't a budget. I mean, most customers that we're speaking to at this point, when they've come to us, have a time frame that they're working towards and usually have a budget. If we show you what you were expecting on the call and that your expectations are matched, how would you take it forward from here? Being genuinely curious is imperative to being a great rep and will help you throughout your career, no matter how far you go, even to a CEO. The second is to really understand that everyone's idea of a masterpiece is different. Asking the right questions and matching their vision to the deal is what gives shape to the discovery calls, right? And the quality of the deal that you ultimately hand over to an AE in some situations. So there's no masterpiece for everyone that fits every single person's expectations. Everyone paints different. Everyone's got different tools. Everyone's got different features. Someone might paint with oils, whereas another might paint with watercolors. But the customer might want a graffiti drawing like a Banksy. And you don't have that functionality. It's your responsibility to not only understand what the customer wants, but how you can help them. And sometimes it means you have to walk away from it. But ultimately, you want to solve the challenges with the palette that you've got in front of you, to ultimately help the prospect understand how you and your business could work with them. The final point is really to create artwork together with other artists. Artists get their inspiration from other artists, and SDRing should be no different. It is no secret that everyone sells differently. Here at Demodesk, we shadow each other's calls and meetings to learn how each of the other reps are overcoming problems, closing deals, pitching the product. Being a good artist is having a keen eye for detail, but then understanding how that person created that detail. It also helps if your other artists are giving feedback about how you're doing things, so you can be able to approach the next deal in a better way and learn more as you go. So the takeaways are: have pure curiosity towards your customer or your prospect. Every masterpiece and deal is different, and to work with your fellow SDRs and leaders to become a better artist. Don't always expect for it to be perfect. Don't expect to close every single deal or convert every meeting. It's how we learn to become better salespeople or artists, is to fail. It makes us better and it improves the next painting we may draw. The art of the sales is an ever-evolving one, and the most important of all is to remember, building masterpieces with your customer, it's a journey, not a destination. If they're great masterpieces, they should go on for a long, long time. So go out there, start your next masterpiece with your prospect, and you never know how much it could be worth to you in the future. Thank you.
Amazing. Steve, love the analogy. Super visual and super useful to SDRs out there in the field that are owning their skills in this craft and developing. So thank you very much. And we'll bring you back onto the panel shortly. So we're just going to try to see if we can get William to share his screen. Will, do you want to press the share screen button? Yeah, I can see you. So let me just reintroduce you. Can we hear you as well, Will?
Yes, I hope so. Can you hear me?
Good. Fantastic. So Will joined as an SDR in May this year. He's made a big impression as a natural salesperson, and he transitioned into sales after spending 2 years as a coding teacher, having earned his BA in creative coding from Goldsmiths University. An avid football fan and someone that has spent time in the creative arts and drama, so has an interesting approach to how he's going to cover his talk today. Over to you, William.
Yeah, I mean, it's typical, isn't it? You spend all these years in technology and then you don't know how to join a conference call. But hey, at least we worked out in the end. So yeah, that was a really lovely introduction. It was so good. I had to be twice, but yeah, thank you all. So like you said, you heard a little bit about me there. I'll say a little bit about Aircall, and then we'll kind of look at some means that I use from my past experiences within the creative arts to deal with rejection and community building within SDRing. So yeah, as you may see, I work for Aircall. We're a VoIP soft phone solution that helps deal with issues sales developers may have when sort of trying to really work out where performance lies. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to be covering community building and how you can use that to create more opportunities and face rejection. So a little bit about me and my background. When I left school, I was an actor. I went and studied at drama school, and I've tried lots of different things. I've tried coding. I've then got into music, and I'm actually a massive drum and bass fan. So I don't know if we've got any junglists out there. But yeah, I used my love and passion for drum and bass to then build a following online, which has gained about 50,000 followers so far. But anyway, how does this relate to sales? Because we're not here to hear about that. The one thing that I found with all these experiences that I've had is that it's always different, the outcome, to what I expected when I was going in. So I could go into something thinking, right, it'll end up like this, and it's never been the case. And that's even the case with sales. And I'm sure you found the same. So say if you're going into a meeting and you're expecting this one to qualify or for there to be a particular outcome, it doesn't always tend to be the case. And it's all about just making sure that what is in front of you is what you're actually seeing and being present within the moment. There was a big aspect of drama school was thinking about actually when you're speaking to someone, are you really hearing them? And a lot of the time as SDRs, BDRs, AEs, we have to make sure we are truly hearing what our clients or customers' needs are. Now, from working in pubs to going to auditions or even being online, the whole time I've faced rejection. And rejection is always hard. I'm sure you have all found that actually it's a really bitter pill to swallow. But over time, by building certain techniques, you can really make that much easier for yourself. Now, what are those kind of techniques that I'm going to look at? The three that I'm really going to focus on are mindsets, performance, and competition. So the first one, mindset, I'll tell you a story about a audition I had. This was my first time out of drama school, and I went to audition for Puck in the East London Shakespeare Company. Now, this was actually on my 21st birthday. It was a big audition. There was about 50 people in the room. They were doing lots of different exercises. And I ended up kind of going through the whole process, the first round and thank you, goodbye, made it all the way through to the second round. And I returned back to my friends at university at the time, and they were saying, what was the result? And I was told, right, I'd be told within, a couple of hours whether I got it or not. Anyway, a couple of hours passed and I didn't hear anything, and it continued. And it was about 4 days later that I'd realized I hadn't got this audition. And that was really, really tough to swallow. And I guess by having an experience like that, where you are facing that rejection, actually, it made me realize that these moments where someone may just not answer your call, or they may say, look, I'm not going to go with you as a service, actually is a much nicer way than what a lot of us have experienced out there in terms of rejection. So just make sure that actually you understand that even though it's maybe tough to swallow personally, it's not about you, because a lot of the times with our industry in particular, there are specific reasons why that's not the case. So making sure that you've got a mindset in place where you understand it's not about me, it's not personal, it's just an aspect of the job. Now, the other is performance. Now, specifically with acting, this is what people don't tend to always realize, is that there are some real kind of technical elements. And it's similar to football, as you've heard, I'm a big football fan, how well you kick the ball, how well you take a free kick. Those are certain technical aspects. It's also the same with acting, and those are very, very relatable to sales. So that could be making sure that you're breathing correctly, so that you're not swallowing the breath like this, that actually you're nice and relaxed, your breath is controlled, so that when you are having to speak, you can really make sure you're getting your point across. Having a good posture, it's one of those small things that your mum would tell you, but actually it has a big, big effect on how your voice comes across, how if you're sat on a Zoom call, if you're hunched over like this, it's not going to have the same effect as if you're upright and being able to really convey what it is that you want to say. And the other is inflections and clarity. Now, a lot of the time within sales, we're waiting for that killer question of, are you going to book a demo? Are you going to go with us? Now, when we ask a question, we do what's called upward inflecting. So we'll go up at the end of our sentences. Now, if the whole way through a call or a conversation, you're upward inflecting, you're going to, when it comes to that killer moment, you're going to lose them, and it's not going to have that same impact. So make sure that you're having clarity the whole way throughout those conversations, and you should be able to really get a big impact on that final question. So the final point I want to hit is that competition. Now, a lot of the time we think we've got this killer mentality within sales, we're all sharks. That really is not the case at all. Now, when I started building up my TikTok page, there was a few other artists and content creators out there. And a lot of the time people would be thinking you're going to be going against each other, you're competition. But actually, we realized quite early on that we had to be supporting each other. So we ended up doing a lot of the same videos. We were using each other's sounds in order to build this community, to build a group of people who loved drum and bass in this instance, but it could be sales like Lucy's doing online on TikTok, to create those relationships, to create a real community there. And it's the same within your team. You've got to support each other. You've got to make sure that you're there, not to fight against each other, but to learn from one another. So in summary, I'll keep it really, really brief. Rejection is always hard, but make sure that you have those 3 tools in place that you can use to develop yourself. That being mindset, performance, and competition. So yeah, thank you for listening to the call, and thank you for bearing with me as well during those technical issues. But yeah, thank you for listening. And if you are interested in looking at Aircall, you can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you very much.
Excellent plug, just like a salesperson right at the end, Will.
Got it,
Wouldn't
it's gotta be
expect
done.
anything less.
No, of course not.
So we're now going to move into the panel. So am I able to invite all the speakers up to the stage? If you guys want to get it going with some questions, so now you've seen all of our excellent speakers deliver their speech, is there anything that's prompted your juices flowing with extra things that you would like to ask them? If you just want to pop those in the chat, then I'll make sure that I do that. But essentially, to kick us off, I'm going to ask you guys some questions. Okay, so anyone can take it. What was the best piece of advice that somebody gave you in the early part of your career as an SDR? To the floor.
I'm happy to jump in if that's
right. Lucy, absolutely.
I think somebody first told me in sales that it's champagne and razor blades, and I think that's absolutely the best thing to understand from the beginning. So yeah, I think that's carried me through both the highs and the lows. So that's the best piece of advice I got.
What's been a champagne moment for you then, Lucy?
A champagne moment has definitely been joining Refract. Which managers all loved hearing that. But yeah, joining Refract just because it's such an exciting space to be in, and yeah, have brilliant conversations daily. So it's a real champagne moment. So long may it continue.
Good. And how do you get yourself away from those razor blade moments? Because we all have them, don't we? That time when you're right down in the dumps, nothing feels like you're going your way. What is your go-to method?
Yeah, of course. And I think, like you say, the first thing that you do is really just take yourself away. Like if I'm having a terrible day, I just think, right, need 10 minutes, make a cup of tea, reassess. But then it's sort of like working backwards. So looking at the things that you've been sending out, listening back to calls that you've had and seeing what you can change and reflect to help you sort of grow from that moment on.
Perfect. I think that's some great advice, reflecting on your performance and taking out that time as a break. Has anybody else got some advice that they want to share that got shared with them in the early part of their SDR career or sales career?
Sure, I'd love to, Elaine. So when I was in Huddle as an SDR, one of my leaders, a guy called Ed Gedner, he was a Army major for 25 years and went into SaaS technology operations. He gave me advice on how to become a leader in the future, and it really sat with me. And this was something that I took with me, not as just an SDR, but as an AE through my career. I've still got the email from him from 2014 because I keep it safe because it was such great advice. So he said, take note of what you believe a good manager does or a great leader does, and see what you've witnessed here at this company. Don't just tie yourself to the sales managers and reps that you've worked under or with. Think wider business. What it is, their style, behavior, problem solving, coaching, speaking to people, etc. What it is about them and what makes them a good leader or a good rep. Identify those traits and use them and make it part of your style. But also identify those people that were bad leaders across any business. What was it that made them bad? What made them a poor rep? Note those things and ensure you don't bring those to the way that you do things too. And that's always sat with me because I'm always looking at what the great things are and the things that people could have done better and trying not to replicate those because we only, like I said, we only learn by doing.
Yeah, perfect. I think that leads into, one of the themes today around that point about always being curious, not only with your customers, but also like in the environment that you're in, because every day is potentially a school day if you've got your eyes open and you're observing what's going on around you. Have you guys got any advice that got shared with you, Will or Bryan? Bryan has. Go for it.
Yeah, the best one that was given to me, very simply, is it's not about you. Either when I'm selling, it's not about me, it's about them. Or when somebody responds badly, it's not about me, it's about them. But also when they respond well, it might not necessarily have been me. It could have been the overall thing. So it kind of helps me sort of humble myself and go, look, I got a bad email, great, not about me. I got a fantastic email, great, not necessarily about me. And if I'm reading those emails and I'm talking about myself, there's a problem. It's not about me. The messaging needs to be about them. So it's something that's kind of permeated through mine.
Great advice. Okay, cool. So next question. What have you got in your sales toolkit that you think helps you drive your prospecting to be successful?
No pitches? No self plugs here?
Okay. Choose something that we might not know about, because obviously we know about these platforms.
That's a good one. I guess the thing that I really look for is elements where I can maybe have a personal connect. So could that be, I don't know, we went to a similar school or something like that, or is there a certain thing that's quite interesting about them on their LinkedIn page that I can then use to really build that personal connect? And I guess relating back to the first question as well, someone said very early on, people buy from people. And I think that is really the crux of what I've kind of built my SDRing ideology upon, is that actually if I can find something to connect with them upon, then I'm going to be much more successful at booking a meeting or whatever it is that we're trying to do with that prospect.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay, so we have got a question from in the chat. So is an SDR an opportunity maker or a problem solver? What are your guys' thoughts?
Oh, why the or? Both. In more of a, you're finding people who don't know they have the problems.
Mm-hmm.
So an SDR will reach out with a very specific message. For us, let's just take a generic one of booking meetings. I'm pretty sure, most people here around, we can help you book more meetings.
So maybe you both.
The different way of doing it is either, you have this problem and we help you solve it. So they create the opportunity of explaining to people, I can see because of the research that you have this problem. And then you create the opportunity by helping them solve it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another question from the chat. Somebody has got Claire Jacobs. Good luck. She's got a final interview for her first role as an SDR. Top tips to impress the director at this final stage.
Make sure you answer the questions in the interview. I've had it so many times where I think the question's been one thing and I've just not been listening, and it's been something completely different. So yeah, that's my one little top tip.
So don't let the nerves get the better of you. Focus on the question.
Yeah, my recruitment hat is definitely coming back on with this one. Best of luck, Claire, for the interview. And I'd ask them at the end of the interview, like, try and not be abrasive, but say, is there anything that you want to know more about me, or anything that or you have any reservations? That gives you a perfect opportunity for them to say, oh, I'm not sure I saw X, Y, or Z quality. And you can go, perhaps I wasn't so clear. I think I demonstrate my tenacity through doing this or whatever, but it's always kind of like a last chance saloon to sort of reveal a bit of your personality and reveal something and kind of win it back. So that would be my advice.
Yes. So I think from my side, I do these interviews like weekly at this point. And Lucy stole mine, because I was going to say the one question I'd always used to use at the end of an interview is, do you have any reservations about me taking this job above anybody else? And the idea is that you want to close. You want to show that you can close something, right? This is something you're going to have to do daily. So if they could see you doing that in an interview, you'll have no problems at all.
Definitely. And also send them a really strong follow-up as well. I think is always a good thing to receive if you're the interviewing person, but make sure you read it 3 times, put it down and go back to it, read it again before you send it. Okay. So I've got some more questions from the audience as well. But a question from me, how do you guys handle Q4 in terms of prospects that you're speaking to, trying to push things into next year? Because this year's obviously been a busy old year in lots of different ways. And I can imagine that people are heading towards the end of the year, getting that fatigue. How are you going to manage that in your prospecting?
I don't think anyone wants to take that. That's a hard question.
A tough one.
Really, really tough one. I think it is about keeping those kind of expectations there and actually finding prospects that their needs are right now, and it may be very quick now, but would we serve them best if we kind of push it through now, or would actually it be much better for them and for us if we do it later down the line? So kind of keeping it clear, and I guess keeping that communication there about actually how can we serve you best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being really realistic about the timescales. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that businesses use now is mutual outcome plans, really understanding the timeframes and earlier understanding of when somebody needs to do something by. if you don't have an impending event, you kind of either have to make one or work with them on it, or you've got to really understand the values that you're actually bringing to the table and whether it's worth doing the deal. You can actually be a bit human about it as well. Most people know you're a salesperson. It's okay to say, this would mean a lot to me if we got it done in this time frame. There's just so many ways you could kind of use discounts. You could use loads of different things. But at the end of the day, if it's not the right deal, you don't want to be wasting time on it as well and have it slip through. Sometimes it's better to close it and reopen it later just to make sure that you're not wasting your time.
Perfect. Well, thank you everybody today on the panel for your excellent speeches and then your answers to the questions there as well. I think James is going to be joining us now to talk to us about what we need to do next.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elaine. Great questions, great Q&A, and thank you to all the speakers for all your efforts. I just want to highlight really what we've all got to look forward to, and that is the 11th of November. Put that in your diary and get your tickets for you and your SDR teams, because we're going to have the biggest SDR event ever in London. Never have we gathered over 200 SDRs and SDR leaders to come together. So this event is going to be absolutely massive. We'll be announcing the top 50 SDRs and the top 50 SDR leaders in the UK. So there'll be a lot of drink, there'll be a lot of food, and there'll be a lot of fun. So the link is in the chat now. You can see it pinned in the chat area. So click onto that link now before we shut off. And then there's still 20 minutes remaining. So head to the networking area and let's have a conversation with each other and have some fun. But that is a wrap, everyone. Thanks for joining Sales Confidence and Venatrix's event.